Hello listeners, here is Giridhar and you are listening to the podcast Giridhar's Garden. In this episode, I am going to share with you my journey throughout this season. But before that, let me acknowledge the comments from our listeners. I have a huge list today, a big thanks to all the listeners out there. So here are the comments that I received so far. For the 19th episode, Marriages Are Made in Heaven, one of my friends Saurabh was asking, "You got married?" "No Saurabh, I'm still happily single." Another friend Satyasiva says, after seeing the various platforms where this podcast Giridhar's Garden is available, "Great Ra." Thank you Satyasiva. One more friend Pratyusha says, "గిరిధర్ దగ్గర ఆటోగ్రాఫ్ ఇప్పుడే తీసుకుందామా, తరువాత ఇస్తాడో లేదో మరి, నైస్ పాడ్కాస్ట్, ఒకటే విన్నా లాంగ్ బ్యాక్, ఐ వాంట్ టు లిజన్ అన్నీ బట్ కుదరట్లే." Hey Pratyusha, thanks a lot for the words of encouragement. You can listen to all the episodes whenever it's feasible for you. Another friend Suresh says, for the 21st episode, Captain Giridhar, going good, keep it up. Thanks a lot Suresh. One of my friends Sakshi says, "Hey, your podcasts are really nice. I have heard them all. Happy New Year to you. Hope you reach all your future endeavors. Appreciating the efforts." She even says, "One of the best things that you are doing during this pandemic. Your podcasts are really good. I even shared to my friends." Thank you so much Sakshi for the words of encouragement. Really, it means a lot. One more friend Anita says, "I listened to one of your podcasts. It was good." Thank you Anita. Another friend Sneha says, "You became a celebrity. You are always in the limelight. Sometimes I feel jealous of you, but it's really good that you always try something new, dance, solo trips, and now the podcasts." Thanks a lot Sneha. It's a positive jealousy from your end that enables you to appreciate along with feeling jealous. Thank you so much about it. One more friend Arpita says, "Awesome, aapka Kashmir sundar tha," for the episode on story of Kashmir. Thank you Arpita. Another friend Mahesh says, "Super for the episode on story of Kashmir." He also says, "Lovely Giridhar, great job for the 18th episode, blessing in disguise." He even says, "Good one Giridhar for the first episode, migration." Thanks a lot Mahesh for the words of encouragement. One more new friend Amanda Doncaster from Canada says, "Beautiful place Kashmir." Thank you Amanda. Another friend Sarath says, "Able to see lot of improvement." Thank you Sarath. One more friend Shivajyoti says, "Have been hearing your podcast here and there, they are good." Thank you Shiva. Another friend Rishik says, "I have listened to both the episodes of Kashmir, they are good." Thank you Rishik. One more friend Rajab Ali says, "You became a star and RJ, we have to take an appointment for you." Arey, nothing like that Ali bhai, it's only my passion. Another friend Yashashvi says, "I have listened to your Kashmir episode. It was good." Thank you Yash. Another close relative Sushma says, "I listen to all your podcast episodes. May not be immediately, but I cover them and even share. They are good." Thank you Sushma. One more friend Sitaram says, "I have listened to 2 episodes so far and both are good." Thank you Sita. Another friend Praveen says, "Your podcast is the best. The voice is so soothing and I feel like listening to it for any amount of time." Thanks a lot Praveen. One more friend Vikram says, "I have listened to your podcast on Kashmir. It was really good." Thank you Vikram. Another friend Manasa says, "I listened to your podcast on school days. It was good, decent content." Thank you Manasa. One more friend Revati says, "It's good that you have been doing the podcast from a long time and every week consistently." Thank you Revati. Another friend Vishnu says, "I listened to your episode on mythology. It was good." Thank you Vishnu. One more friend Pratyusha says, "I listened to few of your podcast episodes. They are good. Great going." Thank you Pratyusha. Another friend Srinijwani says, "I listened to the first episode migration and the story of Kashmir. Both are good." Thank you Srinija. One more friend Manasa says, "Very nice Giridhar. It's great that every week you are doing some or the other podcast. Make sure it is released. Very good energy. Keep going. You can even try as dubbing artist." Thanks a lot Manasa for the words of encouragement. Sure, I love to be a dubbing artist. Let me know if you have any contacts. Another friend Saujinya says, "Nee podcast super. You are unique in your own way." Thanks a lot, Sauji. One more friend, Sampath, says, what a sweet voice. Thank you, Sampath. Another friend, Abhishek, says, I listened to some of your podcast episodes. They were good. It was like explaining to children very neatly and aptly. Thank you so much, Abhi. One more friend, Deepa, says, your podcasts were really nice. I was wondering how you could know so much information about Kashmir. I loved the second part. Thanks a lot, Deepa. Another friend, Judith, says, I listened to few of your podcast episodes, especially the travel one. It was good. Thank you, Judith. One more friend, Kalyani, says, I'm listening to your podcast. They were very nice. Thank you, Kalyani. One of my friends, Samyukta, says, I have been seeing your podcast. Really amazing progress. Good job. Thank you, Samyukta. One more friend, Mahesh, says, super for the year-end review by YouTube and Spotify. Thanks, Mahesh. Another friend, Rishik, says, wow, congratulations, Giridhar, for the year-end review by YouTube and Spotify. Thanks a lot, Rishik. One more friend, Sai Sudan, says, amazing bro for the year-end review by YouTube and Spotify. Thank you, Sai Sudan. Another friend, Sampath, says, the podcasts are really good. I have been hearing them since a while. Thank you, Sampath. One more friend, Sunita, says, I have been seeing your podcasts. They are really nice. Thank you, Sunita. Another friend, Teja, says, I have been following your podcast. Sometimes I wonder how you were managing all this. Thank you, Teja. It's all our passion and interest towards anything that drives us forward. One more friend, Ashwin, says, wow, nice man for the YouTube channel. Thank you, Ashwin. Another friend, Suresh, says, super, content might need improvement, but dedication of time every week is difficult. Hats off for the spare time which you are creating for this activity. I listen every week. People expect more, and I do agree few episodes are too good. Thank you, Suresh. In my view, it's all our perceptions. Moreover, none of us are perfect, and to whatever extent we do anything, there would always be a scope for improvement. However, all I can say is that I give my best to make each episode a hit. One more friend, Rohini, says, super for the YouTube channel. Thank you, Rohini. Another friend, Saurabh, says, for the 46th episode, Life in a Metro, looks awesome. Thank you, Saurabh. One more friend, Ravi, says, I subscribe to your channel, Giri. Will go through all episodes for sure. Wish you all the best for upcoming episodes as well. Thanks a lot, Ravi. Another friend, Vasant, says, super for the YouTube channel. Thank you, Vasant. One more friend, Roshan, says, awesome for the podcast channel. Thank you, Roshan. Another friend, Hariharan, says, amazing for the podcast channel. Thank you, Hariharan. One more friend, Rishik, says, you are on fire. Thank you, Rishik. One more friend, Alok, says, congratulations, Giri, for the podcast channel. Thank you, Alok. Another friend, Deepa, says, congrats, Giri, for the podcast channel. Thank you, Deepa. One more friend, Nagireddy, says, Giri, I'm following your podcast, Giridhar's Gardi. You have improved a lot. You are doing something different. Really, your voice bagundi and you are speaking so nice as RJ. Thank you so much, Nagireddy Anna, for the words of encouragement. It means a lot. One more friend, Priyanka, says, congratulations, Giridhar, for the completion of first milestone with 25 episodes. Thanks a lot, Priyanka. Another friend, Satyakrishnam Raju, says, congratulations, Giri, on successful completion of 25 podcast episodes. Thank you, SKR. Another friend, Tejasvi, says, keep it up, buddy. Thank you, Tejasvi. One more friend, Sravanti, says, your podcast is good. You are doing great. All the best. Thank you, Sravanti. One more friend, Priyanka, says, I'm always excited to hear the experiences on your podcast. It gives me inspiration to do something exciting. Thanks a lot, Priyanka. One more friend, Mahesh, says, great going. All the best. Thank you, Mahesh. Another friend, Ambika, says, amazing voice. Thank you, Ambika. For the 48th episode, the new blue dress that was dedicated to my English teacher, here is the response from her. Excellent, Giridhar. This is not my greatness, but your nature and mental caliber. I congratulate you and thank you for remembering my first lesson, analyzing it in an useful manner. Thank you, teacher. Thanks a lot for always inspiring me. Another friend, Dylan Altoft, says, for the 43rd episode, Tom and Jerry. Awesome episode, loved them for years. Thank you, Dylan. One of my relatives, Mr. Surya Narayana, says for the 41st episode, Corona and Lockdown. Nice. Thank you, sir. Another friend, Patabi, says, I listened to some of your podcasts. Your voice was good. Thank you, Patabi. One more friend, Pavan, says, I listened to your first podcast episode. It was really good. Thank you, Pavan. Another friend, Shailina, says, I listened to some of your podcast episodes. They were nice. Thought you were following your passion. Thank you, Shailina. One more friend, Tarang, says, I like the way you are doing the podcast. I was curious to ask you about its details. Thank you, Tarang. Another friend, Zubair, says, I have subscribed to your channel. You are doing very well by taking variety of concepts like roots, leadership and all. Thank you, Zubair bhai. One more friend, Kaushik, says, Hi Ragarku, finally got time to check out the first episode in your podcast series. Loved it. Happy to hear your voice after a long time. It felt so soothing and nice. Planning to watch the rest of series soon as well. Thanks a lot, Kaushik, for the words of encouragement. Another friend, Ravitesh, says, Podcasts appudapudu chustunna, they are nice. Thank you, Ravitesh. One more friend, Jaykumar, says, I'm following your YouTube videos, such a nice videos. Thank you, Jaykumar. Another friend, Mansoor, says, it all feels very good. I'm happy and proud that you are doing this. All the best, brother. Thanks a lot, Mansoor. One more friend, Aditya, says, I'm following your updates in FB actually. Garadilu, nice. Thank you, Aditya. Another friend, Sunita, says, I must say you speak very well. Saw few of your videos and it was very good. Thanks a lot, Sunita. One more friend, Preeti, says, I saw one of your podcasts and I must say it was very nice. Thank you so much, Preeti. Another friend, Monica, says, I have been following your podcast. Firstly, congratulations and appreciate your efforts. All the best for your upcoming podcast. Thanks a lot, Monica. One more friend, Mahesh, says, heard about your podcast. Good and keep going. Thank you, Mahesh. Another friend, Deepthi, says, interesting podcast. Thank you, Deepthi. There were even some best wishes and comments from my friends for my podcast interview, wherein I was the guest talking about my podcast with James as the host. Sainath says, awesome. Thank you, Sainath. Vindhya says, way to go and may you achieve many more. Thank you, Vindhya. Srinijawani says, nice. Thank you, Srinija. Manjula says, wow, congrats. Thank you, sis. Priyanka says, wow, super. Thank you, Priyanka. Sahiti says, wow, that's great. Keep going. Thank you, Sahiti. Chaitanya says, super bro, all the very best for upcoming ones. Thank you, Chaitu. Moin says, super. Thank you, Moin. Sitaram says, congratulations, Macha. Thank you, Sita. Aman says, congratulations. Thank you, Aman. Vinay says, super. Thank you, Vinay. Sachikrishnam Raju says, awesome. Thank you, Raju. Teja says, great, Giridhar. Thank you, Teja. Well, now let me share with you all my journey for this season. It was June 2020 when I first decided to come up with something called a podcast. I only had the idea but didn't know anything about the execution. Started googling it and then found this app called Anchor. Trust me guys, it's an amazing app for all the podcast beginners. I started recording the trailer, the background music dominated my voice. Still, I found it to be interesting and released it on my birthday last year. There was a mixed response from the audience. However, I went ahead and recorded the first episode. Wow! I received a huge set of positive comments from the listeners. Once again, thank you so much everyone for the encouragement. I found one major issue with the first episode. Again, the technical one, wherein the background music was little dominating. However, I discovered a solution for it and started amplifying my voice. It went fine for another 2 episodes. Then one of my friends, Sarath, suggested me to use an app called Dolby that gives a perfect audio quality. Even I found it to be good, so I started moving ahead with it. In the meantime, I kept receiving positive comments from all the listeners. I have to say that it pushed me to go ahead even though there were obstacles with respect to the technical stuff. After doing 3 episodes, I got to know that we can even do concept posters for better promotions. That's it. I started working on the posters, tried implementing new ways during the promotions. That way, after doing 8 episodes, I started my YouTube channel. Slowly developed the channel page, about info, the DP, cover page and all. That way, after doing 12 episodes, I understood that without earphones itself, the audio quality from my phone was good. However, the 12th episode on politics was removed by the YouTube algorithm due to violation of terms and conditions. It was a new thing for me. I believe it could be because of the poster that contains popular US flags in it. Initially, I couldn't understand the reason and felt bad for it. But later, when I got to know that it was the algorithm that did job, I was all happy to move forward. My journey was going smoothly, wherein I felt that everything was streamlined. However, after 33 episodes were released, I got to know that there was echo in my voice, especially at the place wherein I was recording. I didn't take it seriously when I heard this feedback from a single person. But after 3 to 4 people said the same thing, even I could feel it. I was literally worried as I had some recorded episodes in buffer. However, whenever we have problems, we even have the solutions. I found another app, the Noise Reducer, that removes all the unwanted background noise. Finally, I started using it towards the end during the post-production work and it was all set. But again, after releasing 40 episodes, my parents were affected with COVID and after they recovered, I was infected, quarantined, and it took some time for me to recover and resume the podcast again. On the whole, I could say that it was an incredible journey full of ups and downs. Ups with all your encouragement and support. I would be always thankful to all the listeners who came up with their positive reviews and comments that acted as a catalyst for me. The same way, downs with the technical issues, which I feel that I have improved, but there's a long way to go. And if I take it in a positive way, I got the learnings. So here's a big round of applause from my end to all of you, the listeners who are listening to this podcast, Giridhar Gardi. Kudos and you guys rock. Thank you for motivating me, inspiring me and supporting me. Let's meet in the second installment that's going to launch soon. That is Giridhar Gardi Season 2. Stay tuned and I'll be back very soon with the trailer. Bye bye and have a good day. Here's Giridhar signing off for the day.